The Defiant was built for a crew of 4, and now held over 50 people. The Verum sector was burning. Not literally, but politically. 3 planets had declared independence from the Council in the past week. 2 more were considering it. The rebellion that started with Day's broadcast was growing into something the Council could not control. Velnoth stood in the Council chamber, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. His calm mask was finally cracking. For 10,000 years, the Council had maintained order. Now, because of one human and an ancient artifact, everything was falling apart. "We must make an example," the Vren ambassador growled. "Show them what happens to rebels." "We tried that," the insectoid council member clicked. "We destroyed a colony world. It only made things worse. They call us monsters now." Velnoth turned away from the reports. "There is one option remaining, the Devourer array." The chamber fell silent. Even the Vren ambassador looked uncomfortable. "That weapon is forbidden," the gaseous being said. "We agreed never to use it again." "We agreed many things," Velnoth said coldly. "All of those agreements are broken now. The Devourer array can destroy an entire planet in minutes. If we use it on Earth, the rebellion will end. No one will dare defy us if they know what the cost will be." "That would be genocide," one of the other council members protested. "Billions of humans would die." "Yes," Velnoth agreed. "And the galaxy would learn that the Council's authority is absolute. We will give Day 48 hours to surrender. If he refuses, Earth dies." The message went out across every communication channel in the galaxy. Day received it while the Defiant was hiding in an asteroid field, making repairs before the next mission. He listened to Velnoth's cold voice explaining that Earth had 48 hours. Una saw the expression on his face. "Day, you can't surrender. That's what they want." "I know," he said quietly. "But I can't let Earth die either." Tay had been studying the architect data with the Relic's help. Now he approached Day with something that looked like excitement and terror mixed together. "I found something. The Devourer array. The Council says it's a weapon, but that's not what it really is." "What do you mean?" "The architects built it. The Council found it and reversed its function. Originally, it was meant to create life, to terraform worlds and seed them with living things. The Council figured out how to run it backwards, turning it into a weapon. But Day, if you could reach the array and restore its original programming, you could save Earth and take away the Council's greatest weapon at the same time." Day looked at the star charts. "Where is it?" "The Kolar Nebula. It's in an artificial star system the Council created. The place is like a fortress. Hundreds of warships guard it. It's supposed to be impossible to reach." "Then that's where we're going." The crew stared at him. Even G, who was usually ready for any fight, looked worried. "Day, that's a suicide mission. We can't fight hundreds of Council warships." "We won't be fighting alone," Day said. He activated the communication system. "Send a message on all frequencies. Tell everyone who believes in freedom to meet us at the Kolar Nebula. Tell them the truth about the Devourer array. Tell them we're ending this." The message spread quickly. On Earth, Admiral Nari received it and smiled. "All ships," she ordered. "Plot course for the Kolar Nebula. Maximum speed." The Council blockade tried to stop them, but more ships kept arriving from other systems. The growing fleet simply pushed through, leaving the confused Council ships behind. The same thing happened across the galaxy. Ships from dozens of species converged on the Kolar Nebula. Not all were warships. Many were civilian vessels, cargo haulers, even passenger ships. They came because they had seen the truth and decided to act. The Kalari sent every ship they had. Rin stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the fleet assemble. "My people know what it means to face extinction. We will not let Earth suffer the same fate." Bon and the other rescued prisoners had spread throughout the fleet, sharing what they knew about the Council's tactics. They were turning a collection of random ships into something that could actually fight. Velnoth watched the rebel fleet gathering and felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. Not fear of losing his life, but fear of losing control. The galaxy was slipping away from the Council, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Activate the Devourer array," he ordered. "Target Earth. We will show them what defiance costs." But there was a problem. The array needed time to charge, and the rebel fleet was approaching faster than expected. The timeline had changed. Velnoth made a new decision. "I am taking personal command of the array's defense. Every available ship is to converge on the Kolar Nebula. We will destroy this rebellion here and now." The Council fleet was massive. Nearly 1,000 warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a small moon. They took positions around the artificial star system, forming a defensive perimeter that seemed impossible to break. The rebel fleet arrived and stopped just outside weapon range. The two sides faced each other across the dark space of the nebula. It was the largest military confrontation the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. On the Defiance Bridge, Day looked at the odds. His fleet had about 300 ships, most of them smaller than the Council warships. In a direct fight, they would lose badly. Admiral Nari's face appeared on the communication screen. "Day, we're with you. What's the plan?" "We need to get me to the array's control center," Day said. "That's deep inside the artificial star system. Once I'm there, I can restore the array's original programming. And the 1,000 Council warships between here and there? That's where all of you come in. I need you to keep them busy." Nari laughed, though there was no humor in it. "Keep 1,000 warships busy. Sure, no problem." Juan had been studying the star system structure. "There might be a way. The artificial star is unstable. The Council uses massive gravity generators to keep it from exploding. If we could disrupt those generators, the resulting chaos would scatter their defensive formation." "Do it," Day ordered. The plan was set. Day, Yuna, G, and Tay would take a small shuttle through the chaos and reach the array. The rest of the fleet would create the chaos. Admiral Nari gave the order. "All ships attack formation. Target the gravity generators." The rebel fleet surged forward. The Council ships opened fire immediately. Space lit up with energy bolts and explosions. Ships on both sides started taking damage within seconds. But the rebel fleet had something the Council did not expect. They were fighting for something bigger than themselves. Kalari ships threw themselves at Council vessels, sacrificing themselves to create openings. Human ships used tactics that were unpredictable and chaotic, confusing the rigid Council formations. Bond's ship, crewed by former prisoners, targeted one of the gravity generators. They fired everything they had, and the generator exploded in a brilliant flash. The artificial star shuddered. One generator down, 5 more to go. More rebel ships broke through to attack the other generators. Council ships tried to stop them, but there were too many targets. The rigid Council formations started breaking apart as ships moved to protect the generators. In the chaos, Dai's shuttle slipped through. Juan piloted it like he was flying through a storm, dodging debris and weapons fire. They made it past the Council lines and dove toward the artificial star system's core. The Devourer array was enormous. It looked like a massive ring surrounding the artificial star, covered in the shifting symbols of the architects. But the symbols were wrong, twisted. The Council had corrupted the array's design to make it a weapon. "There," Tay pointed. "That structure at the top, that's the control center." They docked at the structure and rushed inside. The interior was a mix of architect technology and Council modifications. It was beautiful and horrible at the same time. Velnoth was waiting for them in the control center. He was not alone. Elite guards surrounded him, their weapons aimed at the door. "Did you really think I would not anticipate this?" Velnoth asked. "I have studied the architects as long as anyone. I knew you would come here." Day stepped forward, the relic floating beside him. "Then you know you cannot win. The relic chose me. The architects chose humanity. You can kill me, but the truth is out. The galaxy knows what you did." "The galaxy is naive," Velnoth said. "They think freedom is better than order. They are wrong. Without the Council, there will be chaos. Species will destroy each other. Worlds will burn." "Maybe," Day admitted, "but that will be their choice. You took away choice and called it peace. You erased species from history and called it order. You're not protecting the galaxy, you're controlling it. Velnoth moved toward the array's controls. I am activating the array now. Earth will be destroyed. Perhaps that will teach you the price of rebellion. He reached for the control panel, but the relic moved faster. It placed itself between Velnoth and the controls. Light pulsed from the artifact. You were judged once, the relic said. You were found unworthy. That judgment stands. Energy flowed from the relic into the array. The twisted symbols began to shift, changing back to their original forms. The Council's modifications were being undone, erased like they had never existed. Velnoth screamed and tried to stop it, but the energy from the relic threw him backwards. His guards opened fire, but Day and his crew had taken cover. G returned fire and the Khan. The news spread faster than the Council could contain it. On Kalari homeworld, the survivors of the Vren genocide watched the broadcast with tears streaming down their faces. They were not alone. 247 other species had suffered the same fate. The galaxy finally knew the truth. On Earth, riots broke out in major cities, not because people were angry at Day, but because they supported him. They filled streets with signs reading "Stand," with Day and justice for all species. The human government tried to maintain order while secretly being proud that one of their own had exposed such evil ambassador. Sumi received a private message from Earth's president. Do what you need to do, it said. Don't give them Day. Humanity stands together. But that decision came with consequences. The Council fleet arrived at Earth's solar system exactly as threatened. 30 massive warships took positions around the outer planets. They did not attack, but the message was clear. Earth was now under blockade. On a frozen moon near Jupiter, Admiral Nari looked at the Council fleet through her command ship's view screen. She was Day's old mentor, the one who had trained him when he first joined the space service. She had gray hair now and scars from old battles, but her eyes were still sharp. How many ships do we have? She asked her tactical officer. 43 in total, Admiral, but they're all smaller than the Council warships. In a direct fight, we'd lose. Nari smiled grimly. Then we won't fight directly. Send a message to all ships, defensive positions only. We're buying time for Day to complete his mission. Meanwhile, the Defiant was approaching a different problem. The Kolar system was one of the most populated in the galaxy. Billions of beings lived on dozens of planets and space stations. It was also home to Detention Complex 7, a Council prison built into a massive asteroid. That's where they're holding Tay, Day said, studying the scanner readings. The prison has 47 inmates, all political prisoners. People who ask too many questions or refuse to follow Council orders. She examined the prison's defenses. It's heavily shielded. Automated weapons everywhere. Guard ships patrol constantly. How are we supposed to break someone out of that? We don't break in, Day said. A plan was forming in his mind, shaped by the architect knowledge he now carried. We convinced them to let us in. The relic had taught him something important. The Council's security systems were all connected to a central network, and that network was built on top of old architect systems. With his new understanding, Day could access those systems in ways the Council never imagined. He concentrated, reaching out with his mind the way the relic had taught him. He could feel the prison's computer systems, could sense the data flowing through them. It was like learning to use a new sense he never knew he had. Juan, take us closer. Gee, don't power up weapons. We're going in as a damaged ship requesting emergency assistance. Juan sent out a distress signal. It was a common enough occurrence. Ships had accidents, and most stations would provide help regardless of politics. The trick was making it convincing. Attention Detention Complex 7, Juan transmitted. This is the transport ship Wanderer. We've had an engine failure and are losing life support. Requesting permission to dock for repairs. There was a long pause. Then a harsh voice responded. Wanderer, transmit your identification codes. Day had already prepared for this. Using his connection to the architect systems, he created false identification codes. They would pass any standard check. Codes transmitted, Juan said. Another pause. Codes verified. You have permission to dock at Bay 4. But know that this is a secured facility. You will not be allowed to leave your ship during repairs. Understood. Thank you. The Defiant approached the prison slowly, looking as damaged as possible. Juan had even vented some exhaust to make it appear they were leaking atmosphere. The guard ships watched them carefully but did not interfere. They docked in Bay 4. Through the view screen, they could see guards in heavy armor waiting. D had expected that. Phase 2, he said quietly. While the guards watched the Defiant's main airlock, Day used the architect systems to hack into the prison's computer. It was surprisingly easy once he understood how the systems worked. The Council had added their own security on top of the architect foundation, but they never truly understood what they were building on. He accessed the prisoner records and found Tay's location. Cell Block 3, Section 7. He also found something else. The other prisoners included a Kalari named Rin, who had been arrested for speaking out against the genocide. There was also Bon, a scientist from a species called the Merrick who had discovered evidence of the Council's historical lies years before Dai had. "We're not just rescuing Tay," Day said. "We're taking them all." Yuna looked worried. "Can we even fit 47 people on the Defiant?" "We'll make it work. These people are prisoners because they stood up for the truth. We're not leaving them here." Day continued working through the prison systems. He unlocked the cell doors in sections, timing it so the guards would be confused. He also disabled the automated weapons and created false alarms in different parts of the facility. The guards would be running everywhere trying to figure out what was happening. "Now we go," Day said. They exited the Defiant through a maintenance hatch that the guards were not watching. Chi led the way, her weapon ready. They moved through the prison corridors, following the path Day could see in his mind through the architect systems. They encountered 2 guards. Chi stunned them with her weapon before they could raise an alarm. The humans kept moving. Cell Block 3 was in chaos. Prisoners were stepping out of their cells, confused and wary. They had been locked up for so long that freedom seemed like a trap. Day found Tay in Cell 7. He was thin, with long hair and a scraggly beard, but his eyes were bright and intelligent. When he saw other humans, he smiled. "I knew someone would come eventually," Tay said, "though I expected it to take longer than this." "You're Day, aren't you? The one who activated the archive?" "How did you know?" "The whole galaxy knows. The prison guards were talking about it. You've made some powerful enemies. Join the club. Can you walk?" "I can run if needed." They gathered the other prisoners. Rin, the Kalari, was a young woman with green skin and large eyes. She looked frightened but determined. Bon, the Merrick scientist, was massive and covered in thick fur. He had to duck to fit through the corridors. "Where are we going?" Bon asked in a deep voice. "My ship," Dee said. "But we need to move fast." Alarms started blaring. The guards had finally realized what was happening. Day could hear them shouting, coordinating a response. He accessed the prison systems again and locked doors between the guards and the prisoners. That would buy them a few minutes. They ran through the corridors. 47 prisoners and 4 humans, all racing toward Bay 4. Some of the prisoners were injured or sick from their time in prison. Yuna and others helped them along. They reached the bay to find guards already there, blocking the path to the Defiant. There were at least 20 of them, all with weapons aimed at the escaped prisoners. "Stop!" the lead guard shouted. "You cannot escape. Surrender now and your sentences will not be increased." G raised her own weapon, but she knew they were outnumbered. 1 small group against 20 trained guards in armor. The odds were not good. Then Rin stepped forward. The young Kalari stood between Day and the guards. "No," she said simply. "We will not surrender. We have done nothing wrong. You are the criminals." Other prisoners moved up beside her. Bonte, dozens more. They formed a line between the guards and the humans. They were unarmed and weak from imprisonment, but they stood firm. The lead guard hesitated. He could kill them all easily, but something about their defiance made him pause. Maybe it was because he had seen the broadcast from the archive. Maybe he was starting to question who the real criminals were. "Stand aside," he said, but his voice was less certain now. "No," Rin repeated. "We stand together." Dave felt something in his chest. These people who had every reason to save themselves were protecting him instead. This was what the architects had valued. This was why humanity had been chosen. The relic, which had been silent in Day's pocket, suddenly activated. It floated up and expanded, creating a barrier of golden light around all the prisoners and the humans. The guards fired their weapons, but the energy bolts could not pass through the barrier. "Run!" Day shouted. They ran for the Defiant. The guards tried to follow, but the relic's barrier moved with the prisoners, keeping them safe. They reached the ship and piled inside. Juan started the engines even before everyone was fully aboard. The Defiant pulled away from the prison as more guard ships powered up to pursue them. But something strange was happening across the Kolar system. Ships that were not council vessels were moving to intercept the guards. Civilian ships, cargo haulers, even small private craft. They were forming a line between the Defiant and its pursuers. What's going on? She asked. Tay, who was looking at a display, smiled. The broadcast. People saw what the council did. They're helping us. The civilian ships did not attack the council guards, but they got in the way, blocking their path. It was a peaceful resistance, and it was effective. By the time the guards got clear, the Defiant was already jumping to faster-than-light speed. On the bridge, Day looked at the crowd of rescued prisoners. The Defiant jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the council station and their old lives behind. They were fugitives now. Hunted, the Defiant raced through space, but it could not run forever. Behind them, the council fleet was organizing. Ahead, the entire galaxy was about to become their enemy. On Earth, Ambassador Sumi stood in an emergency meeting chamber. Holographic displays showed representatives from dozens of alien civilizations, all demanding answers. She was exhausted. She had been defending humanity for 16 hours straight, but it was not going well. Earth must turn over Captain Day immediately. A Vren commander growled through his translator. If you refuse, we will consider it an act of war. Sumi kept her voice calm, though her hands were shaking. Captain Day saved innocent lives. The Kalari refugees were being slaughtered. My government will not punish him for doing the right thing. Your government does not understand the situation, Velnoth's image said. He appeared larger than the others, a reminder of his authority. Captain Day has stolen a dangerous artifact. He is a threat to galactic security. If Earth does not cooperate, the Council will have no choice but to take action. The threat was clear. Sumi had seen the reports. Council warships were already moving toward Earth's solar system. Not enough to invade yet, but enough to blockade. If Earth was cut off from the rest of the galaxy, millions would suffer. Medicine, technology, trade, all of it would stop. How long do we have? Sumi asked quietly. 30 days, Velnoth replied. Find Captain Day and turn him over. If you do, humanity will only be suspended from the Council, not expelled. Refuse and face the consequences. The transmission ended. Sumi sat down heavily in her chair. 30 days to choose between one man and the entire human species. She knew what some would say she should do. But she also knew what Day had done was right. The moral choice was also the impossible one. Light years away, the Defiant arrived at the outer veil. This region of space was considered cursed by most species. Stars were dying here, and the radiation made navigation dangerous. Few ships ever came to this place. That was exactly why the architects had chosen it. There, Day said, pointing to a planet on the scanner. Third world in the system. It's completely frozen. Juan studied the readings. Atmosphere is mostly nitrogen and carbon dioxide. Surface temperature is minus 200 degrees. No life signs. Why would the architects build anything here? To hide it, the Relic answered. It had been quiet during the journey, but now it floated beside Day's chair. This world was green and warm when the architects walked it. Time and stellar drift have changed it. G was watching the rear sensors nervously. We have a problem. 3 ships just entered the system. Council design. They followed us, and how? Yuna asked. We jumped 4 times. We used every trick to lose them. The Council has been tracking ships for 10,000 years, the Relic said. They are very good at it. Day made a decision. Juan, get us to the planet's surface as fast as you can. G, prepare defensive measures. We need time to find the architect's site. The Defiant dove toward the frozen planet. The pursuing ships followed, firing as they came. Energy bolts lit up the dark sky. Juan twisted the ship through complex maneuvers, dodging most of the fire. The shots that did connect were absorbed by the shields, but those shields would not last forever. Shields at 60%, G reported. Make that 50%. We can't take much more of this. There, Day said, seeing something through the view screen. A valley between mountains. The ice there was different, darker. Land there. Juan brought the Defiant down hard. Ice cracked under the landing struts. The 3 Council ships circled above, firing continuously now. The shields were failing fast. Everyone, pressure suits, Day ordered. We're going outside. They grabbed emergency suits and weapons. The Relic floated ahead of them, seeming unbothered by the fact that they were under attack. At the airlock, Day paused and looked back at his ship. The Defiant had been his home for 5 years. It might not survive this. We'll come back for her, Juan said, understanding Day's expression. They stepped out into the frozen wasteland. The cold hit them even through their suits. Above, the council ships had stopped firing at the Defiant and were now landing nearby. Soldiers would be coming soon. The Relic moved across the ice, following some path only it could see. Day and his crew ran after it. Behind them, they heard the sounds of the council ship's airlocks opening. Shouts in alien languages echoed across the ice. Faster, G urged, looking back. She counted at least 20 soldiers, all heavily armed. The Relic stopped at what looked like a blank wall of ice. Here, it said simply. Day touched the ice, and suddenly he could see it. There was a door hidden beneath the ice, made of the same shifting material as the Relic. His new knowledge told him how to open it. He placed his hand flat against the door and thought the correct pattern. The ice around the door melted instantly, evaporating into steam. The door opened, revealing a tunnel leading down into darkness. The 4 humans rushed inside. As soon as they were through, the door began to close. A council soldier reached the door just as it sealed shut. Day could hear them outside, trying to force it open. It would not work. Only a bearer could open an architect door. They stood in the tunnel, breathing hard. Their suit lights showed walls covered in the same symbols that marked the Relic. The symbols glowed faintly, reacting to their presence. Down, the Relic said, moving deeper into the tunnel. The archive is below. They descended for what felt like hours. The tunnel was steep and winding. Sometimes they had to climb down shafts using handholds carved into the walls. Day wondered how deep into the planet they were going. Finally, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. It was warmer here, heated by some ancient power source that still worked after millions of years. They could remove their helmets safely. The chamber was filled with structures that looked like giant crystals, each one taller than a building. They glowed with internal light, blue and green and gold. Information, Day realized. These crystals contained information. In the center of the chamber stood a platform. On that platform was another artifact, different from the Relic but clearly made by the same hands. This one looked like a tree made of crystal, with thousands of branches spreading out in complex patterns. The Archive of Memory, the Relic said. It contains the genetic and cultural information of every species the Council has erased from history. Day approached the crystal tree carefully. When he got close, it responded to him. The branches began to glow brighter, and images appeared in the air around it. He saw species he had never heard of, cities on worlds that no longer existed. Art, music, science, all preserved here. How many? Yuna asked, staring at the images with tears in her eyes. 247 species, the Relic answered, all destroyed by the Council or their agents, all deleted from official records. The Council made sure no one would remember them. Juan was angry now. Why kill so many? Control, Day said, understanding it through his new knowledge. These species refused to follow the Council's rules. They tried to help others, or they questioned authority, or they were simply too compassionate. The Council saw them as threats. G checked her weapon. The Council soldiers will find another way in eventually. What do we do with this? Day placed his hand on the crystal tree and it responded. The Relic had taught him what to do. The artifact began to pulse with energy, and Day understood that it was preparing to transmit. I'm going to broadcast this information to every planet in the galaxy, Day said. Everyone will know what the Council did. They can't hide it anymore. That will make us enemies of every government in the galaxy, Yuna pointed out. Not just the Council. Any leader who has lied to their people will want us dead. Day looked at his crew. I know, if anyone wants to leave, I understand. Take the Defiant and go home. This isn't your fight, Juan laughed. Are you kidding? We're in this together, Captain, G nodded. We knew the risks when we saved those Kalari refugees. We're not stopping now, Yuna smiled. Someone has to make sure you don't get yourself killed. I'm staying. Day felt something in his chest loosen. He was not alone. Whatever came next, his crew would face it with him. He activated the crystal tree fully. Energy surged through it, up through the planet's crust into space. The signal was too powerful to block or intercept. It spread across the galaxy at faster than light speeds, carried by the same quantum network the architects had built. On thousands of worlds, in millions of homes, the information appeared. People saw the truth. They learned about the species that had been destroyed. They saw the evidence that their governments had known and done nothing. They understood that the council they trusted had been lying for 10,000 years. The reaction was immediate. On some worlds, protests erupted. On others, governments tried to suppress the information, but it was too late. The truth was out. The galaxy would never be the same. In the chamber, Day felt the transmission complete. The crystal tree's light faded. It had done its job. "We need to leave," G said. "The council knows exactly where we are now." They ran back through the tunnels. Above them, they could hear sounds. The council soldiers had found another entrance and were coming down. Day and his crew moved faster, but the soldiers were closer than expected. They emerged from the tunnel to Finn. The relic hung in the air between Day and the council, spinning slowly. Its symbols moved faster now, cycling through languages and scripts that Day had never seen before. Some looked like ancient Earth writing, older than any civilization he knew about. The golden light it gave off filled the entire chamber, making everyone look like ghosts. Velnoth tried to maintain control. He stood tall and pointed at the relic with one long finger. "This object is a remnant of a dead civilization. It has no authority here. Guards, remove it from the chamber." More guards rushed forward. Some tried to grab the relic with mechanical arms. Others attempted to surround it with energy fields. Nothing worked. The relic simply existed in its space, untouchable and unmoved by their efforts. "You cannot stop what has begun," the relic said. Its voice made the crystal walls vibrate. "The truth will be revealed." Before anyone could react, the relic projected images into the air. They were holographic recordings, incredibly detailed and clear. The images showed the same council chamber, but it looked different, newer. The recordings were very old. In the images, 5 alien species stood around the relic. They were the same species that now made up the council: Velnoth's people, the insect beings, the gas creatures, 2 others. But these versions looked younger, more aggressive. They carried weapons. Their ships shown in other projections were warships. "What is this?" one of the council members demanded. But Day could hear the fear in the alien's voice. The relic continued showing its recordings. The images told a story. 10,000 years ago, the 5 council species were not peacekeepers. They were conquerors. They had fought each other for control of the galaxy, destroying countless worlds in their wars. Then they found something that made them stop fighting each other. They found the ruins of a civilization called the Architects. The Architects were gone, extinct for reasons unknown. But they had left behind incredible technology. The 5 species stopped fighting each other and worked together to claim everything the Architects had left behind. The most important thing they found was the relic itself. The holographic images showed the 5 species trying to use the relic. They wanted its power, its knowledge. Each species sent their greatest leaders to be judged by it. Each species believed they would be chosen as worthy. The relic rejected them all. Day watched as the holographic images showed the moment of rejection. The relic scanned each leader and simply said "unworthy" before going dormant. The 5 species were furious. They tried to destroy the relic, but nothing could damage it. They tried to hide it, but it could not be moved from the chamber it had chosen. So they did the only thing they could do. They sealed the chamber and tried to forget it existed. "Lies," Velnoth said, but his voice shook. "These recordings are fabricated." The relic turned to face him directly. "You know the truth, Velnoth, son of Velkara, descendant of those who were judged and found wanting. Your entire civilization was built on the shame of that rejection." The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens from hundreds of worlds shouted questions. Some demanded answers from the council. Others tried to leave but found the doors sealed shut. The relic was not finished. More images appeared. These showed the creation of the Galactic Council and the Treaty of Non-Interference. But the relic revealed the secret reason behind them. The 5 founding species created the treaty not to maintain peace, but to prevent any other species from developing the qualities that the relic valued. The Architects believed in one principle above all others, the relic explained: the willingness to help those who cannot help themselves, even at great personal cost. This is the measure of a worthy species. The holographic images showed the council across thousands of years. Every time a species began showing too much compassion or self-sacrifice, the council found ways to suppress them. Wars were allowed to continue if they made species harder and more selfish. Genocides were ignored if they taught the survivors not to trust others. The entire galactic civilization was designed to prevent anyone from being judged worthy by the relic. For 10,000 years I have watched, the relic said. I have observed every species in this galaxy. I have waited for one that would demonstrate the architect's principle. Only one species has done so. The relic turned back to Day. The light grew brighter, focusing on him until he had to close his eyes against the glare. The humans. They are young. They are weak compared to others. But when they saw innocents dying, they acted. They risked everything to save people they had never met. They knew they would be punished, but they chose justice over safety. This is what the architects valued. This is what makes them worthy. Day felt something touch his mind. It was gentle at first, like a hand on his shoulder. Then it grew stronger. Information began pouring into his head. History, science, mathematics, languages. The knowledge of the architects was being transferred directly into his brain. It was too much. Day screamed and fell to his knees. He could feel his mind expanding to hold the information, but it hurt. It felt like his skull was being cracked open from the inside. Day! Yuna's voice cut through the pain. He could hear his crew trying to reach him, but the guards were holding them back. The relic's light surrounded Day completely now. I name you bearer of justice. You carry the legacy of the architects. You will restore what was lost. Through the pain, Day understood what the relic was showing him. There were other architect sites across the galaxy, all sealed and hidden. They contained technology and knowledge that could change everything. The council had spent 10,000 years making sure no one found them. Now Day knew where they all were. The information kept coming. Day learned how the council really worked. He saw the secret deals, the hidden wars, the species that had been erased from history because they refused to obey. The peaceful galaxy that the council claimed to protect was actually a prison, and every species in it was a prisoner. Finally, the transfer ended. Day collapsed onto the platform, gasping for air. His head felt like it was on fire, but the information was there, organized and clear. He could remember things the architects had known millions of years ago as easily as he remembered his own name. Belnoth stared down at Day with pure hatred. Release him. The relic has made a mistake. Humanity is not worthy. They are children playing with forces they cannot understand. The relic moved between Velnoth and Day. I do not make mistakes. The bearer must now travel to the other architect sites. He must activate what sleeps there. The galaxy will be freed from your control. Never, Velnoth said. Guards, arrest Captain Day and his crew. If the relic will not release him, then they will all die together. Hundreds of guards moved toward the platform, their weapons charged with energy that could destroy a building. Day tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't work. Yuna, Juan, and Ji fought their way past the guards holding them back and ran toward their captain. The relic pulsed once, and a barrier of golden light appeared around Day and his crew. The guards' weapons fired, but the energy bolts simply vanished when they touched the barrier. The bearer must be protected, the relic said. He must complete his mission. A portal opened in the air beside them. Through it, Day could see their ship, the Defiant, waiting in the dock outside the council station. The relic had created a direct path to safety. Juan grabbed Day and pulled him to his feet. Can you walk? I think so, Day said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Everything sounded different now. He could hear harmonics in the guards' weapons, could understand the energy patterns in the relic's barrier. Yuna supported him from the other side. Ji covered their retreat, watching the guards nervously. Together, the four humans stepped through the portal. They emerged in their ship's docking bay. The portal closed behind them, cutting off the sound of the chaos in the council chamber. The relic floated beside them, still glowing softly. Get to the bridge, Ji said. They'll be sending ships after us any second. They ran through the corridors of the Defiant. Day's head was clearing, but he was still processing everything he had learned. The architects, the council's lies, his new mission. It was overwhelming. On the bridge, alarms were already blaring. Juan jumped into the pilot seat while Ji took tactical. Yuna helped Day into the captain's chair. Through the view screen, they could see council warships powering up their weapons. Juan, get us out of here, Day ordered. His voice was stronger now. Maximum speed. The Defiant launched from the dock just as the first weapons fired. Energy bolts streaked past them, missing by meters. Juan pushed the engines to their limit, and the small human ship raced away from the massive council station. They're launching pursuit ships, Ji reported. At least 50 of them. Day looked at the relic, which had attached itself to the wall beside his chair. Can you help us? I can guide you, the relic replied. But the journey must be yours. The bearer must prove worthy through his actions, not through my power. More alarms sounded. The pursuit ships were gaining on them. Day took a deep breath and looked at his crew. They were all looking back at him, waiting for orders. Set course for the outer veil, Day said, remembering the information the relic had given him. The first architect site is there. If we're going to do this, we do it right. The chamber was massive, bigger than any building Day had ever seen on Earth. Walls made of crystal stretched high above him, glowing with soft blue light. He stood in the center of a circular platform alone. Around him sat the 5 members of the Galactic Council, each one representing a different alien civilization that ruled the galaxy. Dai wore his captain's uniform, but it felt thin and weak in this place. He was human, and humans were the youngest species in the council. They had only joined 20 years ago. Now he stood here, accused of breaking the most sacred law in the galaxy. Behind the council members, Day could see hundreds of other aliens watching. Some had multiple eyes, some floated in tanks of liquid, others were made of light or metal. They all stared at him with the same look. They thought he was guilty. High Arbiter Velnoth spoke first. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shift like smoke. His voice filled the entire chamber without any speaker system. Captain Day of Earth, you stand accused of violating the Treaty of Non-Interference. How do you answer? Day took a deep breath. His hands were shaking, but he tried to keep his voice steady. I admit that I helped the Kalari people, but I don't believe I did anything wrong. A sound like thunder rolled through the chamber. The aliens in the audience were angry. Velnoth raised one long hand and they fell silent. You do not believe you did wrong? Velnoth's voice was cold. Captain, the Vren Empire was dealing with rebels in their territory. This was an internal matter. You had no right to interfere. Day felt his own anger rising. They were killing children. The Kalari weren't rebels. They were refugees trying to escape. The Vren were committing genocide. The council member to Velnoth's right moved forward. This one looked like a giant insect, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. Human emotions, it clicked. You acted on feelings, not law. This is why your species is too young for the council. On the left side, a being made entirely of gas swirled in its containment field. When it spoke, the words came from a device attached to the field. The treaty exists to maintain peace. For 10,000 years, the galaxy has been stable. Your actions threaten this peace. Day looked up at the gallery where his crew sat. Juan, his engineer, was gripping the railing so hard his knuckles were white. Yuna, the ship's doctor, had tears in her eyes. G, his tactical officer, stared back at him with a hard expression, but Day could see the worry there. The treaty is wrong if it means we watch innocent people die, Day said. He knew these words would seal his fate, but he had to say them. Humans will never stand by while others suffer. If that makes us too young for the council, then maybe the council is too old. The chamber erupted. Aliens shouted in 100 different languages. Some demanded immediate punishment. Others called for Earth itself to be sanctioned. Velnoth let them rage for a moment before calling for silence again. The Vren ambassador stood up. He was massive, covered in thick armor-like skin, with tusks coming from his lower jaw. The council must act. Humanity is a threat. I demand they be expelled from the galactic community. Furthermore, Earth should be quarantined. No contact with other species for 1,000 years. Day felt his heart drop. 1,000 years. By the time humans were allowed back, everyone he knew would be dead. Human civilization might never recover from such isolation. Velnoth looked at the other council members. One by one they nodded. The decision was made. Captain Day, Velnoth said, this council finds you guilty of violating the Treaty of Non-Interference. The sentence is as follows. You will be imprisoned for the remainder of your natural life. Humanity will be expelled from the council. All human ships must return to your solar system within 30 days. Earth will be placed under technological quarantine for 1,000 years. Any attempt to leave your system will be met with force. Day wanted to scream, to fight, to do something. But he was one man surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Guards began moving toward him, their weapons ready. That was when he noticed it. Behind the council seats there was a door. It was old, much older than the rest of the chamber. Dust covered its surface. Strange symbols were carved into the metal, and it was glowing. Faint at first, but growing brighter. Day stared at it. None of the council members seemed to notice. They were too focused on him. But the door pulsed with light, and something about it made Day's skin tingle. Velnoth raised his hand. "Guards, take the prisoner." The light from the door suddenly exploded outward. Everyone in the chamber turned to look. The door, which had been sealed shut, cracked down the middle. The two sides swung open, revealing a chamber beyond that was completely dark. From that darkness, something emerged. It floated into the council chamber, moving slowly but with clear purpose. It was a sphere, about the size of a human head, but its surface was impossible to look at directly. It seemed to shift and change, covered in symbols that moved and transformed. Some symbols looked like Earth languages. Others were completely alien. They all glowed with golden light. The sphere scanned the room. A beam of light touched each council member briefly, then moved on. It examined the audience. Then it turned toward Day. The light washed over him, and Day felt something he had never felt before. It was like being seen completely. Like every thought and feeling he had ever had was being read. But it didn't feel invasive. It felt like being understood. Velnoth stood up, his calm demeanor finally breaking. "What is this?" "Guards, destroy that object immediately." 10 guards fired their weapons at the sphere. The energy bolts passed right through it as if it wasn't there. The sphere continued its scan of Day, taking its time. Then it spoke. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It spoke in every language at once, but somehow Day could understand it perfectly. Bearer of justice detected. Protocols initiated. The chamber fell silent. Every being there, from the most powerful council members to the lowliest spectator, stared at the sphere in shock and growing fear. Because somewhere in their ancient histories they all knew what this object was. It was the Relic. The object their civilizations had tried to destroy and then tried to forget. And after 10,000 years of silence, it had finally found someone worthy. Day stood frozen as the Relic moved closer to him, still speaking in that voice that was all voices. "Judgment will now commence.